Is everybody ready? Fox News evidence doesn't function as a new link to politics because the plan isn't perceived as amnesty. That'll be explained below. And food insecurity is not the impact to our GMI. I had on that. Will be on the next advantage now. Universities, biotech might be strung out, but it'll soon collapse due to lack of human capital. All they conceded all of our internal links means the uniqueness only goes one direction now. They say that there's a low bring, but they don't have any evidentiary basis for this comparison. There's only a risk that we bring in enough people to create a lot of startups, clusters of knowledge. That's the conceded Zucker and Darby. Our argument now are not going for our monetary impact, but he does not address the thesis of GM agriculture, which is that extinction is inevitable now. It's only a question of whether we can survive the eventual explosion where volcanoes will kill us all, and it's only and destroy the food supply. We create a small food supply that will survive that transition. Asteroids, warming, these are all things that will take out the human species if we do not have crops that we can generate so that we are able to sustain ourselves. This is prefer magnitude to time frame because because it's the only impact to access at the end of the species. Now, competitiveness. The U.S. might be dominant now, but they concede our power evidence indicates we're losing knowledge, and the climate will become self-reinforcing as a reverse brain drain sets in, and more people leave the military because they are no longer developing technology for us. They will concede that the economy is resilient. This takes out their turns case arguments on the dissent, but not the impact because we only are defending hegemony. Now their export controls argument is about student visas. They do not apply once you actually get your green card because there are loopholes where you are able to work for the military. Look, our evidence is just better on this question. Now they concede transition wars. Kagan indicates that that once U.S. power declines in the international system, we're no longer be able to project power, and which means that regional conflicts are sure to erupt, and we cannot control escalation. This is also a reason why hedge solves all the Asian war scenarios. Now we're not going for the warming atom. They have no offense solvency. There will not be a crackdown by consular officers. Their tiger evidence might be rhetorically powerful, but it does not have a warranty plan. Would be uniquely successful at attracting more students. Look, they're getting in now. They're here on student visas. There's only a risk that letting them stay here would work for companies would be successful, at least on the paperwork level. Now they say that there would be a crowd out. This argument does not have an impact because the only internal link to hegemony is immigrants working for military laboratories, not domestic scientists. So obviously they're failing in the status quo. That was explained above. Now we do not create diploma mills. Our plan text says high institutions of higher education. Their link argument is talking about shitty universities that only exist on the internet and are scams to try and get dumb people to try and go to them. At worst, it's descriptive of the status quo because people are getting bad degrees now. It's only a question of whether we can bring in the people who already have the right expertise, who are at the right universities, who are getting great degrees for the long how. Now there's no impacts to people having bad jobs outside the military. Our internal links are more specific, which takes out his last piece of evidence. Now the counterplan, permutation to both solves presidential powers. They do not have any uniqueness there. Lawrence evidence just says presidential courage. Obviously that does not constitute an internal link, and if it is, then you think we can combine executive action with congressional action in this instance because they are different courses of action. Belly evidence is assuming them doing the same thing at the same time, which is not what the permutation is. Now the Federal Reserve does not solve the economy crossed by the Goldilocks scenario. They can only cause problems. There's also no impact to the economy, which means they do not access their turns case arguments. Legal permanent residence does not apply to people who have waivers, which is a reason why all of their arguments about export controls on the case are also a solvency deficit to the counterplan. They will not be able to work on military technology, which results in the collapse of U.S. dominance. Now the signal debate, they can't have it both ways. Either the administration will release the rulings of their new decisions secretly and slowly, which is what our Paparelli evidence is talking about, or they're perceived and they piss everyone off because they're trying to circumvent Congress, which is how we access our links to politics arguments. If there's any risk that students do not perceive the counterplan and they won't be able to come here, every single student that doesn't come as the next Einstein, this means that the solvency deficit is linear and that we access 100% of our GMAG arguments based off of the clusters of knowledge that we create as per the Zucker and Darby evidence. Now, the Houston Chronicle evidence is much more recent. It's not generic. It's not talking about generic XOs. It's about immigration and announcements that Obama made last July about a memo that freaked out Grassley, got everyone excited over the immigration debate, obviously caused a political scandal. It links enough to mitigate the risk of the dissent. Now, skip to there won't be war in Asia. Reuters evidence in... What?
They'll get deported and eliminated.
Oh, people can still get deported. Their unlimited card indicates that there's still a chance of a consular crackdown. Last card in the 2AC. Now, the dissent, there won't be any war over Korea. There's prolif in the status quo, which is what their Hayes and Green evidence is talking about. But Reuters indicates that Hedge will be able to control escalation. Now, there's no impact to their trade scenario. Mearsheimer, one states may not prosper. Such a state would have little to lose economically, maybe even something too. Gained by starting war. Key reason Hussein invaded Kuwait was that Kuwait was exceeding its oil production quotas of war. Is unlikely to do much damage to the state's economy, but typically only a tiny percentage of the state's wealth is not in its economic intercourse with any other state. Mark at state. Now, there's no uniqueness for the South Korean economy. They just say that the trade agreement would cause growth, but not that collapse will occur in the status quo. There's no impact to East Asian prolif. Bitzinger and Desperine, despite all these potential crucibles of conflict, the Asia-Pacific is certainly more stable than one might expect since the resolution of the East. China for more crisis. The region has been free of open war warfare. The breakup of states is unlikely. Terrorism is a nuisance, but its impact is contained. The North Korean nuclear issue is moving towards toward a conclusion with likely denuclearization of the peninsula. Mark at peninsula. Now, military tech is a bigger internal link to Germany that was explained above. Collapse is inevitable now means they cannot access a turns case argument because it's impossible to make the situation any worse. Trade is not an internal link to human capital, which means it doesn't access our Parlor evidence now. They do not have any evidence saying that trade will collapse now. We solve students going to other countries because we give them incentives to come here. The group, the uniqueness debate, they do not post date. They have no card saying that Bacchus is supporting the agreement now. I'll get to that below, but their evidence assumes that the bill actually gets out of committee and gets to a floor vote, which we will win. Will not happen now. Thumpers now Bacchus does not support Skifta now, and he will block it. He does the beef deal that their evidence that they tagged their evidence as did not actually occur. It just says that Bacchus is interested in beef, that they are negotiating a beef deal, but not that Obama will renegotiate the entire agreement. They conceded that he likes the plan means that the only way that the bill will get out of committee ever is if if the plan gets passed and it builds up back his ability, builds back Obama's ability to convince Bacchus. The link turn precedes the link.
7:30, right?
Yeah.